From riders to rivals and polo to Pandora, Jilly Cooper is the undisputed queen of the bonk-buster.
But did you know that she's also a celebrated journalist returning to her roots? Jilly has just released Between the Covers, which is a collection of her finest columns for the Sunday Times, and she joins us now to tell us more. And it's always so lovely to see you. Thank you for our signed copies.
Oh, lovely to see you. Don't you look beautiful too? Oh, I miss you.
We miss you too.
Yeah,
we wish you were here.
Really
the column was infamous, wasn't it? But you talked about anything and everything, and the first column that got people really hot under the collar.
No, yes, it was. I wrote about this weekend, and I said I hate going over the weekend, which is terribly rude because I'm so lazy. And they got so many rude letters that they actually filled the next week's column with rude letters saying how awful I was.
Did they really? I imagine that you are the best dinner party guest anyway, but it was during a dinner party that you actually secured this column.
Yes, there was a lovely man called Godfrey Smith who was the editor of the Colour Mag, and I sat next to him, and I was saying what a ghastly disaster I was as a wife, and how our house was chaos and everything was awful. And I said that I remember I went to the laundrette, that's right, and I put a red silk scarf in with my husband's rugger kit, and all his rugger kit came out streaked like the dawn, and he said he was owed to the team with a rose pink jockstrap.
Amazing.
You say that that those times, the things that you were talking about, there was quite a lot of gin and quite a lot of sex.
That we all drank like fishes, no whales. We really, really drank and drank and drank. And also, we were obsessed with sex, to a lot of sex, because that's the 60s, you see. And the 60s did have a lot of sex.
And wife swapping.
Wife swapping, yes, a lot of wife swapping, yes, that's right. And no, it was very strange because I remember writing saying how terribly worried I was at my 40th birthday, how much longer I'd be able to go on pulling men, which isn't that an awful thing to say?
Yes, it is an
Good
awful
on
thing
you.
to say. But the columns, to try to pick which ones to put in this book, because you just must have had so many. How did you choose?
Well, there were two heavenly girls. I have a lovely agent and lovely publishers. And it was very good because two very, very pretty girls of 30 read them. And they picked out the ones that made them roar with laughter. And I was so amazed that something I'd written back in the 70s made them roar with laughter still. They helped a lot. And then the ones I liked, I was fond of, you know. And what I love about the book is that my darling husband died of Parkinson's disease in 1913. And it brings him back to life again because he's sweet in the book. And the children are so sweet when they're children.
Yeah.
And you wanted to include some of the columns about your dogs as well.
Yes, my dogs, my naughty. It's Jaws of Putney. I had naughty Fortnum who used to rush around, and all the women got so cross because Fortnum used to. My English setter used to go and mount every dog around, and then Fortnum used to encourage him.
Just carrying on the family tradition, really.
I mean, great success with the column. You had great success with the column, but in a way, because you say yourself that you overwrite everything, you're just sort of full of words and they just come out. You were better suited to novels, and obviously so, because you could just keep writing and writing and writing and nobody was going to whittle it down to a small column.
No, that's true. But every column I wrote, I always had 15 drafts, and every single I'm writing a book about football now, and that's 15 drafts for every chapter. So I'm so slow and stupid. That's a tragedy.
And so when you wrote the column, then you'd get a sub-editor who you'd send your work in, and then it would get chopped down. You'd have no control over that.
A bit, yes. I mean, sometimes they did change things. And I remember I wrote a piece about Princess Michael, and who was a friend, actually. She asked me to write a piece about her. And I said, occasionally she can be manipulative. She'll ring up a man called Lord Suffolk and say, do you know Lord Suffolk, anybody with a helicopter? And knowing perfectly well he's got one. And so you have to lend her one. And they changed in the papers. She's very, very manipulative. And things like that. Occasionally they made me nastier than I seem, I think. And also they did have to cut it because it was a bit long.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So the book you mentioned there, this one that you said was taking you a while to write, so this is based on football. What made you want to write about that area in particular?
I think they're quite good looking.
Well, yes, Virgil van Dijk's a favourite of yours, isn't he?
They're gorgeous footballers. I mean, I think oh, look at him. Isn't he the one? Virgil van Dijk? Isn't he the one that's been sort of pulled to pieces by that goalkeeper?
Well, you're talking to the wrong crowd here, I think, actually.
Yeah. It's only because I'm looking at camera 3 and he's nodding.
Apparently Apparently so,
'Cause
yes, yes.
You just immediately look up to see that someone knows what we're talking about here. Yeah, there we go. And so obviously anyone who is thinking about getting this book, it's continuing the Robert of Rutshire Chronicles. Rupert, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's continuing those chronicles. He's now become chairman of a football club, and for you,
The players,
yes. So what were you? Are you? There's a sort of a, because I think you put this book out because the other one was taking a bit of time to come together. Why was it taking time to come together?
Well, I took 14 years over riders, you see, and I'm very, very slow. And so I've only been doing football for about 3 years, so I've still got to do a bit more. You understand football, Phil?
No, not even remotely.
Do you know
It was
what?
always a great disappointment to my father, who was a very, very good player. We have articles that say Schofield scores 7 at home, and I and my brother were both enormous disappointments to him.
Don't like football. Actually, your book on football was kind of my level of football, actually. That's kind of the most information I think I'll be reading about football, for sure. Are you still writing on Monica?
Monica's wonderful. Yes, this is my typewriter, and she's a manual typewriter. And I bought her to cover the Tory party conference for the Sunday Times, the Mail on Sunday. And it was sweet because she had a plaque on the side that said Monica. And so I thought that's such a good name, Monica, for a typewriter that's going to the Tory party conference. Anyway, she's typed all my books, Riders, all of them. She's wonderful.
And you'd never move up to a tablet or anything like that?
I've tried. I think it sounds terribly pompous, but I think Shakespeare wrote onto a quill pen. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean Shakespeare, but I think each writer writes. And you have to think as you write. So if you're worried about, I don't have to worry about Monica except when she gets a bit tired.
It's always so lovely to talk to you, Jilly. This is the book that we were talking about. There's Jilly's Between the Covers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jilly. Lots
Take
of love.
care.